Okay, today we're going to talk about augmented and diminished intervals. Now remember that an interval is the space between or the distance between two given notes. We have already learned major and perfect intervals, which are intervals within the key of the bottom note. We have also learned minor intervals, which are major intervals lowered by half a step, okay, or the space between that major interval is shrunk by half a step. So today we're going to learn the other two types of intervals. Augmented is notated by a little plus sign, and diminished is notated by, it looks like a little degree sign. So this is shorthand notation. You might also see just a small a. Okay, so the plus is augmented. Sometimes you'll see it abbreviated that way, augmented. And the little degree looking sign is diminished. Now we're going to, again, use those terms with chords and other things. So don't let it confuse you because these terms are used in various capacities. All right, so sometimes, again, you'll see the plus, sometimes you'll see a little a, sometimes you'll see the AUG. This is most often used. Sometimes you'll just see a small d or the DIM. Okay, so just know that it's all talking about the same thing. Okay, kind of like having a nickname. Okay, so we're going to look at how to go about finding or notating these new types of intervals. Now, we know that major and perfect intervals are in the key of the bottom note, and I always teach that you think of intervals and chords from that major position. So that is always where we're going to start. Now, it's very important to remember our numbers here. Major and perfect intervals are intervals within a major key, but you have to remember which numbers are major and which are perfect. 4, 5, and 8 are perfect, and all the other ones, 2, 3, 6, and 7, are major intervals. It's very important and to keep that in mind now. Okay, now I'm going to draw a little chart here. We already know that if you take any major interval and shrink it to the left on the piano, down a half step, we know that it becomes minor. All right, we've already done those. And now we're going to learn augmented and diminished. All right, so we're going to do augmented first. To augment space between two things means to make the space bigger. They're all the same. So if you take any major or perfect interval and you take the space between it and expand it by half a step, that means raise one of the top note or lower the bottom note. But in this case, we're going to raise the top note and expand that space by half a step. It becomes augmented. All right, and they're all the same. Now we're just going to use accidentals to do that. Okay, so that is how you get an augmented interval. You make it major or perfect first, and then you use whatever accidental you need to raise that top note out of the key half step. Okay, let's talk about diminished. If it's a 2, 3, 6, or 7, and you need it to be diminished, you're going to start by putting it in the key. And if it is a 2, 3, 6, or 7, you must lower it 2 times to make it diminished, because major goes to minor, then another half step to diminished. All right, so you're actually lowering it a whole step total, but you would use your accidentals to get to that diminished. You wouldn't actually change the pitch. If it were a G, it's got to stay a G, and just use accidentals to get to that diminished. If it is a 4, 5, or 8, and you want to diminish it, it only has to be lowered 1 time, 1 half step. Okay, and that's why it's important to remember that your major intervals are 2, 3, 6, and 7, and perfect are 4, 5, 8. Because if it's perfect and you want it, if it's a 4, 5, or 8, you put it in the key first and then only lower it 1 half step. But if it's a 2, 3, 6, or 7, you must lower it 2 half steps to make it diminished. They're all the same for augmented. Okay, so here we go. Let's do some in practice. I'm going to think in this major key of G flat, and I want a third. So I'm going to list the notes that are flatted in G flat. That's a lot of flats, B, E, A, D, G, and 1 more C. I'm going to deal with my 3. I'm going to go up 3, count the note as 1. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to make it a major third here. Okay, it's a B, so it gets the flat. All right, so right now I have the major third, and I need it to be augmented. So what I'm going to do, to the right on the piano, I'm going to raise it a half step. How do I raise a flat? With a natural. So I'm just going to add that natural. So the G flat to the B natural is an augmented third. Okay, now this is where it's important to remember perfect intervals are only lowered one time to make them diminished. So I'm dealing with B. What's in the key of B? F, C, G, D, and one more A. I'm going to go up 5 from B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and draw a note, and that is an F. And in this key, it is an F sharp. So I have now a perfect fifth. I'm right here. If I want a diminished fifth, I must lower it how many times? Just 1/2 step. It's currently an F sharp, so I'm going to make it an F natural. So B to F natural is a diminished fifth. All right, moving on to the key of E with a diminished sixth. Now again, it's very important to remember when you see the diminished where you're starting from. Forget cutting grass during, that's in the key of E. I'm going to go up 6 and I land on C. In this key, C is sharp. All right, so I currently have a major sixth, E to C sharp. I'm right here. I've got to get to diminish. So how many times am I going to lower it? 1, 2. 2 half steps, but don't change the pitch. Use your accidental. So I have a C sharp. To lower a sharp, I make it natural. To lower a natural, I make it flat. And in music, we read the accidental that's furthest to the left. So this, if you encountered this, you would know that this is a C flat. So E to C flat is a diminished sixth. And again, it's like math. If you can do some of this work in your head, absolutely, that's the goal. But for a while, it might help you to show your work. Okay, going to A flat. What's in the key of A flat? B, E, A, and one more D. Deal with your fourth. Go up fourth, you land on D, and in this key, D is flatted. So I have a perfect fourth, and I need an augmented fourth. I'm going to raise that a half step. How do I raise a flat? With a natural. And if you get confused on your accidentals, remember left to right, this is the order. Natural goes to flat, goes to double flat, and it could happen that you might even need a triple flat. Notationally, that is a thing. And up here would be a sharp. Okay, so these are the direction if you were going on the piano in half steps. And if you wanted to raise a sharp, if you want to raise it, which you sometimes have to do, you could write it this way, or a double sharp sign actually has a little shorthand sign. It looks like a little X. The double flat does not have one, but the double sharp does. So either way is right. Okay, diminished sixth from D flat. What's in D flat? B, E, A, D, and one more G. I deal with my sixth. That's going to put me on a B. That is flatted in this key, so I'm going to make it a major sixth. I'm right here in a major sixth. I need a diminished sixth, so I've got to lower it 2 half steps out of the key. I currently am dealing with a B flat, so I'm going to add another flat and then another flat. And I know some of you people are thinking, wow, B triple flat, that's really just an A flat. Yes, it is, but to keep it a sixth, we have to spell it with some type of B. Okay, so remember, this is just sort of mathematical exercises. It's got to stay a B, or if I change the note, I'm now dealing with a fifth, because that's 5 notes away. So I know that inharmonically you're thinking, wow, why would this ever happen? But it's all about spelling. Okay, so diminished sixth from D flat is actually a B triple flat. Pretty cool. All right, here we go. F sharp. F sharp has a bunch of sharps in it. Forget cutting grass during an earthquake. We're going to go up 2. That is a G. It is a sharp. I'm going to write it over here just so it doesn't look so messy. Okay, so F sharp to G sharp is a major second. I need an augmented second, so I'm just going to add another sharp. And there you have it. Intervals of all 4 types. Major and perfect being in the key. Start there and then go whichever way you need to. Practice makes perfect.